Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down my week number 15 top 5 defenses to stream for the 2024 fantasy football season, as well as some honorable mention defenses to add at the end of today's video. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 15 defenses to stream for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with my number 1 defense to be streaming on the week, and that is the Dallas Cowboys at the Carolina Panthers. The Cowboys defense is currently rostered in 26.7% of leagues on NFL, 31.9% on ESPN, and 40% on Yahoo. So if you play on Sleeper or CBS or any other fantasy football platform, then the rostership percentage might be slightly different, though I will note in some cases, from platform to platform, there could be a drastic difference in rostership percentage. So the Dallas Cowboys play tonight on Monday Night Football up against the Cincinnati Bengals, and in my opinion, even if Joe Burrow and the gang end up elbow dropping the Dallas Cowboys defense, I would still be very confident in streaming them this week up against the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Dallas Cowboys defense has really turned the page as of recently, and honestly, it is almost sad to think about because when Dak Prescott was healthy, this is a defense that could not even buy a stop, but ever since Micah Parsons and Deron Bland ended up returning, this is a defense that looks far superior compared to early on in the season. I know some of you guys might be like, Nick, they just played up against the Giants on Thanksgiving, week 13. They win 27-20. That is not all that impressive, right? Because you're just going up against horsecock Drew Lock. I get it, but ultimately, there are other games prior to that where the Cowboys have played up against better opponents and have looked very solid defensively. In that game up against the Giants on Thanksgiving in Jerry's World, they had 6 sacks, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, and 20 points allowed. And while Bryce Young is kind of rejuvenating his career, while he is playing significantly better than what we saw last season or early on in this season before they pulled the plug for the Red Rifle Andy Dalton, and I want to give Bryce Young his flowers because he looks like, you know, maybe that's why they drafted him so highly. Maybe that's why he was the number 1 pick and not CJ Stroud, right? This, that, and the other thing. But ultimately, even while he has looked better and while I am ready to give him all of the praise that he deserved, because honestly, he could have easily beaten the Eagles last week. If some of these receivers actually had hands, then yes, he probably could have potentially beaten the Eagles. But ultimately, when the Cowboys defense is playing this well, when they look so phenomenal, I just have to side with the fact that the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to make Bryce Young look pedestrian. The Eagles defense up against the Panthers, they win 22-16, 1 sack, 1 INT, 16 points allowed. And while the Cowboys schedule going forward is far from a wet dream, right? After this, they go up against the Bucs. Then they play up against the Eagles. But even so, with how the Cowboys defense has been playing, I do believe that they are startable in both of those games, even if they don't end up being the top tier option in terms of where I would rank them as starts on the week. So again, while Bryce Young is playing a lot better, and while I do believe people need to start throwing at least some slight respect towards the way of Bryce Young, when push comes to shove with how good this Cowboys defense has looked. And again, even if they get pile drived tonight by the Cincinnati Bengals, I believe you want to be rocking with them up against the Panthers. Next up, we got my defense to stream number 2 on the week, and that is the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Patriots at home in Arizona. 33.8% roster on NFL, 60.4% on ESPN, and 36% on Yahoo. Now, the Cardinals defense last week, things didn't look too pretty, right? Prior to last week, a lot of people, myself included, were starting to really believe in the Arizona Cardinals because prior to this game up against the Seattle Seahawks, where they got absolutely face-fucked by Geno Smith, they had 3 straight games with 3 or more sacks, and in all 3 of those games, they had forced a turnover. Last week, they didn't even look remotely the same. They got plowed from start to finish, 30 points allowed, no sacks, no interceptions, no turnovers, no nothing. All they did was do nothing, right? They just got destroyed. But again, while I can acknowledge, hey, they didn't play the best up against their division rival, the Seattle Seahawks, this is a much better matchup. This is a clear bounce back matchup for the Cardinals defense, because while Geno Smith has his up and downs, and while I don't think anyone really thinks the Seahawks are this Super Bowl contending team, they are levels ahead of what the Patriots are, especially offensively. I mean, we're talking about DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, Zach Charbonnet, Noah Fant, all guys that can play ball, and you're comparing that to the Patriots with Drake May and a bunch of fucking XFL wide receivers out there, basically, right? The Patriots are not a offense loaded to the gills like the Seahawks have, at least in terms of the weapons core. Now, the Patriots were on bye last week, so we got to go back to week number 13 for their defensive stats of the opponent. Indianapolis Colts, week 13 at the Patriots in Foxborough. They win 25-24, 4 sacks, 1 INT, 24 points allowed. The Colts don't have this elite defense. The Colts are not the 85 Bears. Neither are the Arizona Cardinals, but again, when you're going into a matchup like this, a solid matchup on paper up against the Patriots, and I fully understand while the Arizona Cardinals defense did not look good at all last week, I do believe that the bounce back is imminent here. After this matchup going up against the Patriots, the Cardinals face the Panthers in Carolina, and assuming that the defense gets back on the right foot in this game, you should definitely be wanting to start them up against the short king, Bryce Young. Next up, we move to the hot Atlanta Falcons at the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football. 5.4% roster on NFL, 8.8% on ESPN, and 9% on Yahoo. The best way to describe the Atlanta Falcons defense, in my humble opinion, is they are a lot like the Dolphins. They have the pieces. They have the names. They have the Zach Sealer. They have the Jalen Ramsey, right? But it doesn't all fit together, right? They're kind of missing some of the pieces to the puzzle. So while they have some talented players on defense, it's not like the Falcons are this ragtag group. It just doesn't all fit together. But you don't need all of the optimal puzzle pieces to kind of jam together to play well up against the Raiders, especially a Raiders team that not only doesn't have Gardner Minshew, they don't have Aiden O'Connell, who got injured. He had a left leg injury. And according to head coach Antonio Pierce following the game, he said, "It does not look good." Combing the internet following this, looking at this morning on Monday, things don't sound good at all. It seems like he is done for the year, and Ritter will now be the quarterback one going forward. Now, I understand Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, they are far from the ideal starters at the NFL level, right? No one is ecstatic to watch a game that involves Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew at this point in both of their careers. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Phoenix Marie, there is a large difference between even that level of bum to a humongous bum, shout out Nicki Minaj, in Desmond Ritter. Now I know, Nick, this is a revenge game up against the Falcons. Nick, you love revenge games. I do love revenge games. But honestly, I don't think that a Ritter revenge game really moves the needle at all. The Falcons defense is coming off of a game where they got dismantled up against the Vikings in Minnesota. They lose 21-42. Sam Darnold absolutely just surgically performed in that game. He threw a ball. It was either one of the Addison or Jefferson touchdowns where he rolled out of the pocket, and it didn't even look like Sam Darnold. You would have thought you were watching a quarterback that is one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. He threw an absolute rope into the end zone. It was beautiful. The Falcons defense had 0 answers for it. 4 sacks, 42 points allowed. But again, when you're comparing a matchup up against the Vikings where they have Justin Jefferson, they have Aaron Jones, they have TJ Hawkinson, they have I Want a Bad Bitch, Jordan Addison Ray, right? When they have all of these weapons, it's a humongous step down when you're going up against the Raiders, a team that no longer has Devontae Adams. Team that doesn't have Gardner Minshew, that doesn't even have Aiden O'Connell. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, they go up against the Raiders last week, and the Buccaneers are far from this world beater defense. They win easily 28-13. 2 sacks, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, and 13 points allowed. And a solid kind of bump in here is that the Falcons play the Giants next week. So as long as they're able to get it done up against the Raiders in Viva Las Vegas, I do believe you could start the Falcons yet again next week. Next up, we move to the left, hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the New Orleans Saints. 19.1% roster on NFL, 29.7% on ESPN, and 22% on Yahoo. But before we talk about the Commanders defense and then the 5th defensive stream and then the honorable mentions, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. Now, if you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you'll be able to claim your free pick, which tonight on Monday Night Football is going to be Joe Burrow higher than half of a total yard, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Now, if you're watching this video on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then the free pick will be different. It will either be a different NFL quarterback higher than half a total yard or a NBA player higher than half of a total point. Even if you don't watch the NBA, you can match that player higher than half a total point with a player in the NFL. So if you do 2 picks and both of your picks hit, you receive likely 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple other picks, then they all have to hit, but the payout will be higher. So again, make sure if you are new to Underdog, you sign up using promo code Notorious to get that free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So back on into things here. Next up, we got the Washington Commanders going up against the Saints in New Orleans. Now, the Saints are another team that is beaten and battered. The Saints lost Derek Carr late in the 4th quarter after he attempted to become fucking Cam Newton or something and jump for the first down. He injured his left hand on the play, and the belief as of right now is that his hand is fractured. Now, Derek Carr was also evaluated for a concussion, but head coach Darren Rizzi, the Rizzler himself, could not confirm if he is in the protocol or not. We saw Jake Haener come into the game, and assuming Carr misses, regardless of which buffoon they end up throwing in as the lead signal caller on the team, with how injured this offense is, we're talking about like real bad talents at the wide receiver position besides MVS. Like, they really don't have anyone of name. Like, think, if you're not a Saints fan, think of another Saints wide receiver that's healthy right now. You probably can't, right? So assuming that Carr misses, which is the correct assumption as of right now, I think that the Commanders defense is a great play on the week. Now, they were on bye last week, so we got to go back in time. Got to hit the time machine up, Rick and Morty style, back to week 13 for the defensive stats of the Commanders. They had 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, 19 points allowed up against Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. The Giants went up against the Saints last week. They lose 11-14, 2 sacks, 1 INT, 14 points allowed. Again, this is a Saints team that has suffered so many injuries. This is a Saints offense without Derek Carr. And again, I get Derek Carr hasn't been the best this year, right? He kind of put the fake on us, right? He kind of was a little bit fugazi early on in the season. The Saints looked fantastic, like Sydney Sweeney's Tatas in Euphoria, right? It was looking fantastic, but then eventually it ended up being fugazi. It ended up being fake. They ended up firing their head coach. And sure, the Saints have been a good team. Like, they're winning games, but they're not a great offense, right? And again, without Derek Carr, whether it's Jake Haener or discount Walmart version Patrick Mahomes, Spencer Rattler, I think you would be absolutely crazy to believe that the Saints offense is really going to do all that much. And again, even if you don't love the Commanders defense, I don't think anyone really does. This is a great matchup for them. Now, the Commanders play the Eagles and Falcons over the next 2 weeks. And while I would be fine playing them up against the Falcons, I want nothing to do with them up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Next up, we got our final defense to stream before we move on into the honorable mention. So make sure if you guys have enjoyed today's video thus far, hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So we got the New York Jumbo Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars. 21.2% rostered on NFL, 42.1% on ESPN, and 43% on Yahoo. I am honestly perplexed, shocked, led astray by the fact that they're owned in 42.1% of leagues on ESPN, 43% on Yahoo. Who in the right mind is playing the Jets? Now, again, the Jets defense on paper, they're great, they're amazing, this, that, and the other thing, but they have not played like that, and ever since they canned Robert Saleh, they sent his ass packing, the Jets defense has not lived up to expectations at all. And again, I might have just taken a dump on the metaphorical chest, Cleveland Steamer style, of the Jets defense, but it's all about the matchup, right? It is all about the matchup, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are not a good offense. Without Trevor Lawrence, this is an offense that is constantly looking bad. They are constantly going in the wrong direction. Mac Jones looks like Stevie Wonder in the goddamn pocket. He reads a defense at the level that Floyd Mayweather would be reading Green Eggs and Ham, right? It is downright atrocious. Again, while the Jets defense didn't do anything to Tua last week, they lose 26-32 in an overtime thriller because the Jets offense really showed up. 32 points allowed, no sacks, no interceptions, no nothing. Diddly squat out of the Jets defense. But we just saw the Titans go up against the Jags. 1 sack, 2 INT, 10 points allowed. So again, while the Jets defense is a disgrace to what most people thought they would be, while the Jets defense is a complete and utter fucking disaster as of recently, ever since the firing of Robert Saleh, Xerxes from 300, up against the Jaguars, this is a wet dream spot for the Jets. So while I don't have the highest belief in the Jets, well, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Jets are guaranteed to wipe the floor with the Jaguars, because again, the Jets defense has looked very bad recently. This is the matchup that gets them back on track. Now, the Jets play the Rams next week in Week 16, and then the Bills in Week 17, so I shouldn't even have to say this, but there is no way in hell you should be playing the Jets up against those two offenses. Final honorable mentions here. We got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Cleveland Browns. I don't love this matchup, but the Chiefs defense is solid, and you know Jameis Winston has those potential 2 to 3 interception type of game in him, and that could easily happen up against the Chiefs, who just won via black magic up against the LA Chargers. Then we got the Baltimore Ravens at the New York Football Giants, another kind of self-explanatory, going up against Drew Lock, the Giants. That's always going to be a finger-licking good matchup. Then we got the Broncos at the Colts. The Broncos defense should be able to lock up AR5, Anthony Richardson. Problem is, both of the defenses we talked about already, the Chiefs and the Ravens, probably not available. The Broncos probably not available. The Vikings going up against the Bears, probably not available. And the Eagles up against the Steelers, also probably not available. More than likely, though, I do think you might be able to pick up the Philadelphia Eagles. And while they didn't look amazing up against Bryce Young, I didn't really see a lot out of Mr. Unlimited last week. So I do think that the Eagles should be able to play solid defensively in that game. So if you're sitting here at this point, you're like, Nick, none of these defenses are available, even though a lot of the defenses we talked about, like 20% rostered, 19% rostered, 5% rostered, 33%, 26%. So while you should have been able to find another defense, if you can't find a defense and you're like, Nick, I'm picking between these defenses, let me know in the comment section. I will definitely try and help you out. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious to get your free pick tonight. Joe Porter, higher than half of a total yard, plus your first time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button down below if you're new. Whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you guys leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. I love you guys more than you'll ever know. Thank you guys for all the support throughout the season. We'll be back later with the waiver wire video. Have a great one. And as always, good boy.